The Washington State University Cougs coming off of another hard-fought victory, this time at Fresno State. They won the game 25-17. It was far from pretty, but they got the job done.
We've won a lot of close games. We are really battle-tested as a team. Another one of those kind of scrappy performances, maybe like UW, where it doesn't look really pretty, but at the end of the day, the job's getting done, and those kids made a bunch of really big plays.
And they will be heading into a not as easy as it looks matchup against the University of Hawaii in Pullman this Saturday. The Rainbow Warriors currently lead the Mountain West Conference in scoring defense at 19 points per game and total defense at 309.4 yards per game. Pair that with the Cougs' struggle on offense the past few weeks, and this should make for a closer than expected matchup. So let's get into this episode with Dylan Howe recapping the Fresno State game as well as previewing the matchup with Hawaii. But before we do, the sponsor of this podcast is Black Label Supplements. They're my go-to for all things supplementation. They are a third-party tested, athlete-approved supplement company based here in the Pacific Northwest. Make sure to check out blacklabelsupplements.com. You can use code CouchGM for 15% off your order. And as always, if you or someone you know is thinking of buying, selling, or refinancing a property in the Pacific Northwest, make sure to reach out to myself, Connor Webb, the Couch GM, as I am a full-time mortgage broker during the day when I'm not making these sports videos, and it's my goal to help sports fans and athletes get into their dream home. My contact information will be in the description of this video if you'd like to reach out and connect. And with that, let's get into the podcast. Cougs coming off of a close, narrow victory against Fresno State in Fresno. First off, a big shout out to Ethan O'Connor, the player of the game. I mean, he saved this game. The Cougs were down 16-17 with about 7 minutes for saving this game and this season a bit.
That was awesome. And the same exact play happened in the first half, and O'Connor biffed it. So it was great to see him learn mid-game. And, you know, he's had his share of freshman mistakes, but, man, he's just got a innate call for big plays. You know, it was fantastic to watch, and the defense certainly bailed out the offense and Ben Arbuckle this week because there were some issues. And, you know, Mateer again leaving points before half. You know, he probably left anywhere from 6 to 14 points with the fumble, the interception that was both inside Fresno State territory. I just found myself just very angry watching that game. And shout out to Fresno State. You know, they had 41,000 people there. When you go to Cal or you go to Stanford or you go to some of these other Pac-12 schools over the last 5 to 10 years, they don't have 40,000 people in their stadium. So it's good to see, again, shouting out the Central Valley fan base of Fresno State. They packed it in, they showed up, and they gave the Cougs a run for their money.
And per Jake Dickert's press conference after the game the next day, it sounds like Fresno State was having half-off beer happy hour before the game in the stadium. So, you know, they were doing their best to try to get as many fans into the game and to get them as rowdy as possible. And as Dickert has said, you know, when they're playing the Cougs, they're going to be showing up with the most rowdy fan base, the most packed stadiums, and the biggest atmosphere because, you know, the Cougs coming into town is a big deal this year. Definitely wanted to shout out Ethan. Also wanted to shout out Asa, the offensive lineman for Wazoo. Also in Dickert's press conference, he noted that Asa on the year has just 5 quarterback pressures and no sacks allowed. This guy is apparently 6'7", 320. He's going to be playing in the league at some point very soon. You know, Dickert shouted him out. We had him on the initial clip last week talking about how, you know, they're the more physical team. Just want to give him his props where it's due.
Hey, he proved it. They kind of proved it. All right. Kind of proved it. Let's not get carried away here. Now, hey, the other thing about Issa is he didn't play offensive line before he came to Washington State. That's nuts. So he doesn't even have the amount of reps that a lot of these other guys on the O-line have. And yeah, it's been fun to watch. I mean, to come in and take up a whole new position. Dickert talked about it this week in the press conference, how it's pretty amazing stuff.
Reminds you of a guy like Abe Lucas from a few years ago.
Yeah. I mean, I still to this day will say he is the greatest offensive lineman to come out of Washington State. And I might get some pushback with the boomers. So
also, an announcement that just came out this morning was that the Cougs will be hosting Louisiana Tech, the Bulldogs, November 15th during the 2025 season. It was also announced this week the date of the Apple Cup. I believe it's September 20th. That will be in Pullman, Washington. And then, of course, again, now Louisiana Tech is joining the lineup. And so that brings us to, you said 5 home games, 3 away games currently?
5 home games, 3 away games. Taking a look at the schedule, you have a home game to kick off the season against Idaho. Place SDSU at home at North Texas. It was announced earlier this week. UW will be played in Pullman on September 20th. Then you go at Virginia 9-27, and then at Ole Miss 10-11. So you're hoping there's a bye week in between that, 2 road games where you're going out pretty deep. You're going out to the East Coast for Virginia, going to SEC country for Ole Miss. And then Louisiana Tech gets put in 11-15 at home. So hopefully the Cougs can get another 2 home games and then another 2 road games. So you have 7 home games this season after not having 7 this year. That would be big. And then the other aspect is just give me the Cougs in South Bend, Cougs at Notre Dame. Just give it to us, please. You gave us Oxford. Give us South Bend. Come on, WSU.
John Mateer, second year as a starting quarterback. You got Wayshawn Parker in his sophomore season. This WSU, roster and their chemistry is lined up, ready to go. Next year could end up being a really big year.
Very well could. It all comes down to recruiting your own team in the offseason because the NIL door is wide open and it ain't closing anytime soon.
We'll see if they can keep putting games and wins together. Like he said also, a win is a win. This was not pretty in the slightest. And this kind of brings us to our social media post of the week. I don't know who was, ended up posting this on my account. This definitely wasn't me. But this is Dylan Howe tweeting in the fourth quarter, I believe, saying, hate to say it, but you can't let Mateer go back out there if you want to win this game. Dylan, your initial reaction?
Well, like I said earlier, I was extremely frustrated watching that game. It just seems like Mateer just finds himself going too fast. The decision-making is obviously still that of what looks like a freshman quarterback. Obviously, it's his first year really throwing the ball. Obviously, he came in and run packages last season. But, I mean, you have 2 different quarterbacks in John and Zevi. Zevi is going to be more of your pocket passer that's going to throw the ball downfield. So I truly do think, regardless of all these NIL deals with Mateer, I don't think that leash is very long anymore.
And Dickert has said, John knows that he needs to play better. He knows when he messes up and when there's opportunities for growth. And like with that fumble in that game, Dickert said that's a spot where he should just throw the ball away. Don't try to do too much. The ceiling is so high with Mateer and his ability is so high that he believes in himself and making every play. And I don't fault him for that. But at the same time, it's like you got to be smart and know when to, take your losses or to just throw the ball away and move on to the next play.
It's just like the drive before half in Boise. I mean, you had 3 points. You had 3 points right there. And he overthrows the ball into the end zone into triple coverage. It gets picked. I mean, these are just mistakes that he has got to learn from. It can't continue at the rate that if the Cougs continue to play like a Fresno type game, they're going to lose a game that they shouldn't this year. And it's not going to be fun. So in terms of, taking a look at Dickert's press conference, and we'll kind of segue into that, is you could tell he was not happy with how the game plan was ran.
Offensively, really watching through the tape, I mean, it's just a willingness to want to run the ball. I think we have good personnel. I think we got a good O-line. Yeah, I think they were stout in there, but everything stems from running the football. And, I think we had 9 tailback touches before, midway through the fourth quarter, right? So we've addressed it. We've talked about it. It's got to be part of our identity, and we've been good at it this year. So to not really test the waters, I don't think was good enough. And then, pocket progression passing. We're still working on that. There's a lot to improve on.
He had quotes in the initial 6 minutes of his press conference from this past Monday. Everything stems from running the football. And this was the key quote that stuck at me. We've addressed it. We've talked about it. It's got to be part of our identity. I mean, we've been good at it this year. And you take a look at that last drive. Wayshawn Parker ran the ball five times for 39 yards, effectively iced the game, got them into a position where you're not worried about Dean and a 40-plus yard field goal. They got him into a situation where it was an easy 3 points and then make Fresno State drive down the field with no timeouts. So, yeah, it's interesting. And when you have a guy like Wayshawn, you need to go to him, and I expect Wayshawn to run the ball at least 15 times this week.
Yeah, Diggert said in his press conference that Wayshawn had something like 9 carries midway through the fourth quarter, and that absolutely can't happen. Early on in the season, they were running the ball. Wayshawn, Juvinski, they have a solid rushing attack. You got John Mateer that you could do some quarterback draws with, mix that in. That opens up the play action game and opens up the passing game. And heading into this week's preview against Hawaii, this is going to be a tough team. It's actually the best defense in the Mountain West so far this year. So far, the Hawaii defense is allowing the lowest points per game at 19 points per game, and total defense 309.4 yards per game. They actually held the Boise State Broncos to their lowest scoring output of the season. And Ashton Jeanty, we all know who he is. We saw what he can do. The Hawaii Rainbow Warriors limited, Ashton Jeanty pretty well up until that fourth quarter. It was 13-7, at some point into the fourth quarter of this game. The Hawaii, that defense, the WC offense has to figure this out in their play calling, because this is going to be a tough matchup no matter what the spread says for betting lines.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can hold the Boise State Genties, under 4 rushing touchdowns and so on and so forth, that's a pretty good day. But also, Hawaii is not an easy road trip for any team. It's long been known amongst bettors and sharps that at Hawaii can get a little funky. Really glad that this game's at home here in Pullman. Obviously, the last 2 games have been on the road in Boise State as well as Fresno State. So it's going to be nice to get back home into the Palouse and have a little bit of home cooking before you go right back on the road the following week when they come to Dilly's place of the land in San Diego. So really looking forward to that.
Yeah, Hawaii, of course, I think it's still a 3-hour time difference from where we are on the Pacific coast, but Boise having to take a 5-6 hour flight out to Hawaii. There's the time difference, all that stuff. Hawaii is going to have the same issue coming over to Pullman. Plus, it should be a pretty packed house.
Plus, the game's at 12. So now you have Hawaii bodies are playing it like it's 9 a.m. as well. So that's another aspect that goes into the travel.
It's the same issue that UW's heading to Indiana to play a noon game, or is it a 9 o'clock game? No, it's a noon
9.
game.
Well, 9 our time. Yeah, it's 12.
Okay.
Yeah, 12 o'clock Eastern time, 9 o'clock Pacific time, and the best is just
tough for them.
Yeah, the best is just seeing the UW fans constantly on these game time announcements on X going, why are we playing at 9 a.m.? What? You did this to yourself. You made your own bed here, UW.
And we don't feel bad for 1 second. I think it was 40-16 was the final score of
Iowa
UW playing at Iowa.
Iowa, considered the worst offense in football last year. 40-piece. Not to mention the over-under was 41. Iowa damn near did it themselves. Congrats to the Hawkeyes.
All those joint Mariners Coug fans, you love to see it. It's the same type of thing. Yeah, Taylor Saucedo, if you're watching this, make sure to comment below your thoughts of the UW season so far. So this Saturday, 12:30 p.m. is the start time in Pullman, Washington. I'm just going to call it Martin Stadium because that's what it is. The betting lines currently it's an over-under of 55.5. Wazoo is currently favored by 20. What are your thoughts on those lines?
I don't like Wazoo minus 20. That's for sure.
I'm
not touching that. I'm not touching that with a 5-stick pole.
It's like San Jose State came into town and did what they did. I mean, with Hawaii's defense, WCU's
and good parallel there. Good parallel with San Jose State. They both run the same offense. It's a run and shoot offense. And the last time WSU saw that, they gave up, was it 54-52 or 52-50? Regardless,
yeah, 54,
they gave
52.
up.
Yep.
They gave up 50 points to San Jose State, and they looked like they couldn't stop the ball at all for the first 3 quarters. And they, finally maybe figured something out in that fourth quarter, because that was a game that you could argue shouldn't have gone our way. And Dickert said it earlier this week in his press conference. You get a second shot at a run and shoot offense. It presents another challenge for the WSU defense and the coordinators and coaching staff to really game plan and not get 30, 40 points hung on us at home. Hopefully with homecoming, you get a lot of Cougs out here. The past home game wasn't the best results in terms of fan attendance. And that's understandable with Oregon and UW and USC and the UCLAs of the world not coming to Martin Stadium anymore. But you know what? The fight is now, and the fight is here, and the fight's in the Pac-12 of what we have at our disposal right now. So we've got to be able to understand where we are in this current realm of college football and, get money into our NIL department in terms of the Coug Collective, get money into the CAF. It's not time to boo-hoo and sitting in a corner. Now is the time, because in 2031, stuff might be changed and flopped around again. So you want to make sure you're in the best spot of where teams that did get added, like a UCF, like a Cincinnati, where you're there and you're ready to become that P4 member again, because it sickens me saying that Cincinnati, Houston, and SMU are P4 schools, and Oregon State and Washington State are still sitting trying to build a conference up.
And you were talking about, Hawaii's, their offense. I was looking at their stats, and they really don't have a rushing game. Their leading rusher is, carrying the ball 39 times for 160 yards through 6 games. He's averaging 4.1, but it's, 39 carries through 6 games. And their running back, Landon Sims, is actually from Gig Harbor, Washington. So their passing attack, Braden Shager, I believe is how you say it. Shager. He has just shy of 1,600 passing yards on the year, 60% completion rate, a long of 59, 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So they are.
He's 82 overall in college football 25. I mean, that tells you all you need to know. He's a decent little quarterback.
Does he have wheels on him? I mean, he's carried the ball 67 times, 101 yards.
Speed of like
he's averaging 1.5 per carry. So.
Okay, this week I'm thinking, Connor, you're going to be Hawaii and I'll be Wazoo. We're going to run it. We'll twitch it. We'll broadcast it.
Well, but I would prefer the outcome to be what it's actually going to be, this week, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I want the Cougs to actually win, but
going kind of back into Fresno, the one thing that I did like from the defense was it wasn't a ton of pressure on the quarterback, but you saw them getting pressure late in the game. Keith Brown signed to Oregon out of high school, transferred to Louisville. One of those deals where, hey, he's not playing there. He's looking for an opportunity to come in and get a lot of playing time. He's getting that here. He's back in the Northwest. Tackle for loss and a huge sack last night, on Saturday night. So that was good to see. You want to see Cyrus Webster kind of get more involved in terms of rushing the passer. He was brought in from Utah Tech as kind of that guy that was going to hopefully find some sort of way to, not, for lack of a better term, replace Brennan Jackson and Ron Stone. I still have sleepless nights thinking about if we had those two on our roster still this season, how good our defense would be. It's good to see Schmedding, whose seat's got to be a little warm here, finally dialing up some more blitzes, because dropping 8 wasn't working. It just was not working. It's good to see the coaching staff switch it up a bit. And this is going to be a big test for Schmedding in the defense this week. Is, like I said, your second chance at a run and shoot offense. Hawaii has long been known over the years as a team that's going to pass the ball up and down the field. Years of Norm Chow. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting game, and it's a game that the Cougars can't lose.
One more win gets them bowl eligibility this season. Of course, they're looking for much more than that, but make sure to tune in 12:30 Saturday, and we'll see you next week for the recap.